there is evidence which suggests that physical activity can reduce, increasing our levels of physical activity, can reduce the risk of all-cause mortality, that's all causes of death, by up to 50%.
Friends, I'm inviting you to time travel with me. Time travel back to your childhood. Can you remember the long summer days running around with your friends outside, having fun, playing games, being adventurous? My summer days were filled with games of pick up baseball until dinner and then kick the can or tag football in the street until dark with the kids in the neighborhood. Can you remember how much fun you had running around laughing? Can you recall how much energy you had? Let me bring you back to the present moment. How do you feel about your current physical training program, if you have one? Do you look forward to every session? Do you bring a high level of enthusiasm and excitement to the gym? What if you could recapture that excitement, enthusiasm, and sense of adventure that you had when you were a kid? That level of seemingly boundless energy.
Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living. And welcome to the 5 Mountain Adventures podcast. Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy. And we help people get unstuck, feel better, and thrive in stressful times. Our goal for this year is to help 5,000 people not only feel better, but to thrive in these stressful times via our podcast, mental fitness, one-on-one, and small group coaching. You can help us reach our goal by rating and sharing our podcast and following us on Instagram and YouTube.
Help us raise the vibration of our world, moving from anger, fear, and division to courage, understanding, and compassion. It starts with us. Today, we are speaking with Darryl Edwards, a movement coach, author of the best-selling books Animal Moves and My First Animal Moves, and a thought leader in the area of creativity and innovation in fitness and health. Darryl developed the Primal play method to inspire others to make physical activity fun while getting healthier and more robust in the process. Welcome, Darryl.
Hi, thanks very much, Andy. Thanks very much, Casey. That was a great introduction. And I'm so looking forward to having a delightful conversation with you today.
Thank you. We're really excited to have you here. And we know you have a lot going on in fitness and health world, but we do like to hear what our guests are most curious about in their lives right now.
Oh, good question. I suppose I'm most curious about helping others unlock the many barriers they have to fitness, to not only getting fit, but maintaining fitness, having a sustainable practice. So that's, I'd say, is my constant concern and curiosity, is how I can create more strategies to help people find a pathway to more movement in a more spontaneous and sustainable fashion.
Nice. And so it sounds like you had an interesting journey as far as uncovering this curiosity and finding the path that you're on today. Would you mind sharing that journey that you've been through?
Yeah, so my previous career vocation was working as a technologist within investment banking. So you can imagine, very cutthroat environment, very lucrative financially. It was very much built on meritocracy. And so I was rewarded handsomely for the work that I did. Of course, that environment demanded a pound or two of flesh, and work was pretty much my primary focus. Wake up in the morning, I'd be pretty much in the office. So by the time most people are getting up in the morning, having their first cup of coffee, I've already done an hour or two at work. By the time many have gone home, it's probably just after lunch for me. And so there were very long days, relatively long nights, not much sleep because I'd be working on call. For most of that time, I really enjoyed the type of work I was doing. I enjoyed the fact that I could be fired at a moment's notice if I wasn't up to scratch. And I felt anyone who wasn't up to the mark, that's just the way it was. So I felt very fulfilled within that environment. It took me a lot of hard work to get there. And so I felt as if this was a way of me proving myself in the world. until I started encountering some health issues. And those health issues were based on me working in a very stressful environment, not getting much sleep, eating poorly, and being very sedentary. So I had an annual health check, and on the annual health check, my doctor said, "Mr. Edwards, we have a few concerns. You're pre-diabetic, you have high blood pressure, you have some issues. We have some issues with your cholesterol. Your lipid profile is really poor. We need to put you on a cocktail of medication to help manage this." I asked about the side effects. I asked about when I'd be able to come off these meds. And it was like, well, we'll manage the side effects when we come to them, and you're going to be on these meds for the rest of your life. I asked if there's any alternatives. Not really. This is something which is genetic. It's something that you can't really do much about. I'd advise you to get onto the medication immediately. So I had a question around exercise being able to help with my blood pressure. So I said to my doctor, well, I don't do any exercise. I'm not moving. I'm highly stressed. Maybe I should try exercise to at least avoid one of those pills. My doctor said, well, try some exercise. I'm going on vacation. I'll get back in sort of 3 or 4 weeks. We can review at that stage. And that really was a turning point. One, recognizing there was something that potentially could help me from a lifestyle point of view. And secondly, my doctor being very sure that whatever I was going to be trying wasn't going to be successful and we'd have to revisit the meds in 3 or 4 weeks. The good news at that stage was my doctor called me from his vacation after reviewing my bloods and said to me, well, what have you been doing? Who have you been getting medication from? Because your results are improving within a matter of weeks. And I said, well, I've just been exercising. That's really been the only change. And my doctor basically said, hey, we need to start a case study on this, because I have no idea why we're seeing these incredible improvements in your health markers. Your blood pressure is normalizing, your lipids are improving, your triglycerides are coming down, your blood pressure is improving, your blood sugars are improving. This is looking fantastic. Let's keep monitoring you. Let me have a look at the research. What do you mean research, doctor? What is that? He explained what research was in the kind of medical field, in the exercise field. And he said, I want to see if you're an anomaly, or if the literature tells us that physical activity will garner some of these health benefits in the short term. So that propelled me from being a bystander and interested in my own health improvements to one where I wanted to learn more. I wanted to become mentored in that space. I wanted to become a personal trainer. I wanted to improve the health of others through fitness. And that was my sort of the genesis of me recognizing the importance of movement as medicine. So that was a time when I was like, movement for me is far more than getting into shape and looking good on the beach in the summer. I need to manage movement as a daily prescription, as a daily medicine. But I also recognized that I knew nothing about that field. I was a computer scientist, I was a software engineer. I knew nothing about physical activity or exercise science. So I decided to cross-train. I decided to work in that field, build up some experience and expertise. And then I realized I was starting to fall out of love with computer science. I started to fall out of love with that type of work environment. So it wasn't an easy decision, but I quit. I quit my job. I had no idea what I was going to do next in terms of monetization. I considered starting a gym, like a black box gym, 5, 7 members, people paying a heck of a lot of money, probably ex-bankers who would want to join a gym of this fashion. I felt I would definitely get investors and capital to start something like this. And I wanted to train those who wanted to work out like athletes. So I wanted those who probably had not much spare time to do anything else but to want to train to become athletes outside of their normal day job. So that was my original mission, which also took a kind of a turn for the worst when I recognized I didn't really love the work that I was doing. My clients that I had at the time weren't enjoying the process. So I had my clients clock watching, wanting to end sessions early, arriving late for sessions, constantly querying why I was recommending a particular exercise. And one client said to me, which I'll never forget, they said, "Darren, if you think this is such a great idea, why aren't you doing this with me?" And I was like, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't want to do what I'm asking you to do. I'd want to do something else. And he says, well, what would you want to do with me? And I was like, I'd want to play more, actually. I'd want to play some games. I'd want to do things that I do for myself, but I wouldn't actually advise you to do as a client. Why not? Because I don't feel it's serious enough. So he was like, I want to play too. So we ended up playing for our next session. And remarkably, or unremarkably, in fact, there was no clock watching. He arrived on time. At the end of the session, he was like, what do you mean the session's over? You know, can we continue? I was like, no, we can't, because I've got another client. But that was a pivotal change in my approach to my own movement to prescription, and also what I expected I would do for others. So I stopped working out and I started to play out, and I wanted to incorporate more play into my programming. And I realized for some of my clients, that was not what they would want to do. It's not something that they would want to pay for. And my ideas around elitism were, fell by the wayside. And I wanted to then target those who really struggled with exercise, who found it difficult to motivate themselves, even if they had a personal trainer on their shoulders, boot camp style, shouting at them like a sergeant major, telling them what to do, do 10 more reps. And so when I decided to expand my thoughts around play and the seriousness of play, I looked back at my own childhood. I looked back at the last time that I was motivated to move significant. And it was certainly back when I was a child, or as an adult, it would be probably the next best thing was me going to nightclubs and dancing for half the night and realizing I had all this energy. I would only stop when I had no choice, or I didn't like the song that was on. But apart from that, I was like, I can just dance all night, get me some more water, play my music, DJ, and let's go, and I was like, that's the sort of endurance I can do. You know what I mean? How comes I've got the energy to dance for hours and not complain? Whereas if you ask me to go to a run for an hour, I'm like, don't really want to do that, but I know it's good for my fitness. So okay, of course I will. Or I'm going to raise money for charity, so of course I'll run that half marathon. But there was no joy. So I was like, I need to recapture joy. Most of that joy movement came from myself as a child, being outside with my friends, peers of all age groups, all different levels of skill and abilities, exploring what we could do ourselves and what the world around us would allow us to do. So usually outside of adult supervision, right? To explore what those barriers were, thinking about risk and managing risk, and risky play adventures, climbing trees, getting on bikes and just exploring the city, having no idea how we got to where we were, but we had to get ourselves back, no GPS, no, no maps, but we still found our way back home. So for me, it was easy to convince myself that I wanted to recapture that, but I also didn't want to be childish about that process. I didn't want to patronize myself as an adult. I was very serious about health markers and fitness markers that I wanted to maintain. And I felt I didn't want to lose out to the version of myself who would want to continue to work out. So I was like, how can I satisfy the adult in me, the serious persona in me who wants to hit all of these fitness targets, but also my inner child who's like, that's boring, let's just play. How could I marry those up? And so the primal play method was born with 3 pillars. One pillar being play psychology, one pillar being evolutionary fitness or evolutionary biology, and the third being exercise science. And all these three pillars are kind of combined, synergized to ensure that I could use exercise science to validate what I was doing from a kind of physical activity point of view, from a fitness point of view, looking back at evolutionary biology to say, this is how humans, the conditions under which humans evolved to move. And so I want to move like my ancestors were able to do as part and parcel of their day-to-day survival. So they had to, push, pull, climb, lift, carry, sprint, crawl. They had to perform all these jump, they had to perform all these movement patterns, these primal, instinctive, universal movement patterns. I want to make sure that those movements are kind of endorsed and validated by modern science in terms of an evidence base. But finally, even those first two, there's a very bitter pill there to swallow. It's like, yeah, it's all movement's great, exercise is great. It's all these health benefits for not just for the mind, but also for the body. But oh my goodness, it's just hard work. So the way to kind of make that palatable was to use play psychology. So the play psychology is finding a way to make that difficult, hard work into serious play. And so those are the three pillars of the Primal Play method. And that's when I realized I had something that I could monetize. I had something that I could actually build as a business. And I could become entrepreneurial rather than just being like any other personal trainer that does their work day to day. I recognized there was something different that I wanted to offer to the world. And I wanted to appeal to clients who wanted to harness their playful nature, but in a way that was childlike rather than childish, in a way that would satisfy all of our needs and requirements of movement, whether that's physical health, emotional health, or mental health.
Oh, I love it. You were telling your story about the lab tests, the medication, the doctor, and one of the things that struck me there was, and that's kind of my story, but it's not exactly my story. How many people listening to us, how many people out there across the planet are in this same position, right? Where their doctor just says, well, you're going to stay on the meds until the end. And that's just it, right? And my theory is, pharmaceuticals are great, but if there's a natural way to do things, why don't we go that route? Why don't we try that route?
Yeah.
And I just love it, right? So that hit home to me is, how many people out there in our audience are suffering with these same things, have experienced the same conversation. And our topic today just falls right at the top of the first mountain, the physical mountain. And if our bodies are fit, we feel better, we think more clearly, we respond better to the stressors out there in our lives. You touched on it a little bit, but I want to maybe go a little bit deeper. From your viewpoint, what impact is the physical inactivity having on the general population?
Oh, yeah, great question. I mean, sedentary behavior, physical inactivity is one of the leading causes of chronic lifestyle disease. No question. We know historically, if we compare the levels of movement and physical activity for a 21st century human in the 2020s in comparison to a generation or two ago, there's a vast difference in the amount of physical activity undertaken. I mean, incomparable. And unfortunately, our current levels of activity are like nothing ever seen before in human history. So we've never been this sedentary. We've never had the luxury of having technology being able to aid us in all of these areas of our lives, which mean we can just spend our time sitting and do pretty much everything we need to, right? So, and it's not just for ourselves as adults, it's the same for our kids as well. So it's not just a case of looking at historical comparisons either. There is evidence which suggests that physical activity can reduce, increasing our levels of physical activity can reduce the risk of all-cause mortality, that's all causes of death, by up to 50%. So
Wow.
there's nothing else in the research which offers that benefit. Nothing. Changing diet, possibly giving up smoking, but
No.
there really isn't anything in terms of a positive lifestyle intervention that can offer these benefits across the board for our health. And that's just looking at physical health. So there are physical benefits in relation to improving our cardiovascular fitness, i.e. direct benefits. In other words, if I improve my cardiovascular fitness, I'm less likely to suffer from cardiovascular disease, less likely to suffer from a stroke, less likely to suffer from a heart attack, less likely to have deal with high blood pressure, less likely to suffer from thrombosis. Direct correlation, right? If I strengthen my bones with weight training, I'm less likely to have osteopenia or osteoporosis. So we have these direct references, which are pretty well researched in the literature. If I spend time improving my lean body mass, my lean muscle mass, we know there are improvements to our body composition. We know we can reduce the risk of overweight and obesity. We know we can improve the ability for our bodies to maintain function as we age. We know there are benefits not only to our bodies, but also to our mind cognitively. So we know we can reduce the risk of cognitive decline. We can reduce the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia, for example. So there are very clear and direct benefits of incorporating more movement into our lives and breaking up sedentary behavior. But we also have these benefits, these kind of softer benefits, less tangible benefits that many of us are not aware of. So for example, our gut microbiome, which many people speak of as being beneficial for us, and what probiotics should I take, how can I avoid antibiotic resistance or the damage from antibiotics, and what foods, kind of kimchi and sauerkraut, what can I do to improve my diet? But there's research that suggests that independent of diet, improving our cardiovascular fitness, improving our peak VO2 max can actually increase microbiome diversity and volume. So by improving our fitness, we improve the health, the volume of health promoting bacteria. So the organisms that live within us benefit from improvements in our own physical fitness, which improves their vitality, and thus leads to us being able to better fight off disease and have better health promoting bacteria in our gut. So there are many benefits to every single cell in our body when we become more physically active. And this increase in physical activity is not just improvements in cardio, walking more, running more. It's also a requirement to do physical exertion, physical labor, weight bearing activities, muscle loading, weight bearing activities. It's the whole gamut of physical activity that we need to do to promote good health. So I've just touched on a few headlines there in relation to how powerful movement is as a way to reduce the risk of chronic lifestyle disease, but also to help manage conditions as well. So you spoke earlier, Andy, about the conversation many of us have at a doctor's office where the doctor goes, okay, here's some pills, and we go, okay, that sounds great. But I think a more nuanced conversation is sometimes when we do have to take a pill for whatever that is, by adding lifestyle, you may be able to reduce the dose of that medication. It may be something you can come off. It may be a short-term intervention of utilizing that medicine if you start adding lifestyle changes. Or even best case scenario, you may not need the medication at all, just through lifestyle change alone. So fortunately for me, I've never been anti-pharma, the big
Hmm.
evils of pharma. I'm actually more against big furniture, as I call it, big furniture. The dangers of chairs and too much sitting down and all these labor-saving devices. I feel that's far having more impact on our lives than anything else we do, because all of us, every single person on the planet, is impacted by this significant improvements in technology, meaning we just don't have to move as much anymore.
Mhm.
And for you to do so, you've got to do a lot of work to decide that you want to do a lot of physical work. I've got to
Mhm.
join a gym. I've got to find a workout program that I enjoy. I've got to put the hours in to see the benefits and see the improvements that I want. I've got to be very self-disciplined when I've got to turn my nose at all the other things I could be doing instead. Hey, Darryl, do you want to come out for a drink after work? No, I'm off to the gym. Hey, do you want to catch up the weekend? No, no,
Mhm.
I'm doing my 60K bike ride. Like you've got to almost become an addict and so hard willed to say, I'm going to ignore what the average Joe and Jane are doing. Do you know what I mean? Those sedentary
Mhm.
people. I don't want to be them. I want to be the active one. So you've almost got to become neurotic at following this path of becoming an exercise addict so I can avoid a sedentary lifestyle. Um, and it shouldn't have to be that way, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And years ago, it wasn't. We didn't have 50 years ago. Who went to the gym? Just professional athletes. That was it, right? My dad, for example, he never went to the gym, but he woke up in the morning. He did some squats. He did some press ups. He moved. If we were moving house, it was my dad. You know what I mean? It was
Mhm.
it was a delivery company of one, my dad, and the rest of the family would help out if we could do it, if we could manage it. Most of the time he's like, no, you're too weak, you're not strong enough. I'll do everything. But my mother walked everywhere. If we went grocery shopping with her, we'd be walking, we'd be carrying the bags with her. She didn't drive a car, thank goodness. So we had to walk miles. so so that was normal for my childhood, and for most of my friends it was the norm to walk to school, to have a paper round, or paper route, I think you call it, to have a paper route. Like most kids couldn't
Mhm.
wait to become 11, 12 years old. I've got my first job. Paper round. How far do you have to go? Oh, you wouldn't believe it. Blah, 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 blah. I've got to get up so early in the morning and basically walk, right? Or maybe get on a bike and for miles delivering paper. Then I've got to go to school, right? So that sounds as if I'm talking about something which almost happened a century ago, right? It's like,
Right.
what do you what do you mean you used to deliver papers by hand? What do
Mhm.
uh, um yeah, kids of today will have no idea of how archaic our world was even just 30, 40, 50 years
Mm.
ago, right?
Yep.
And anyway, so yeah, so I feel very passionate about this, and I feel as a advocate for technology. I love technology. I love my Xbox. I love my smartphones. I love all the great things that technology does. But at the same time, I'm aware of the dangers in relation to these devices are basically saying, hey, spend a bit more time in your chair. Hey, come
Mhm.
on, Darryl. Just have a look at me once again. Get that controller in your hand and play another game, right? Let's see how such and such is doing. Browse their timeline. You say you want to do that when you go for a walk, but you can't really focus, right? You got to be sitting down. And whilst you're at it, why don't you order some food, and then send an email and do more work, and get a more comfortable chair. So anyway, so big burner for me is one of the evils. And I didn't speak about this in my tech talk very much because I just didn't have the time. But one of the things I do remember when I was, I'm a kid of the 70s. I was a child of the 70s. One of the things I remember is there were hardly any chairs, like, if you went to your train station, say,
Mhm.
or like a bus stop, no chairs. You might have a pole with a sign, you might have a bus shelter, but there'll be no chairs, right? Train station, no chairs. Chairs in public were hardly seen, right? And if you did see them, very, very, very uncomfortable. Like, i.e., these are chairs that we don't want you to sit in for very long, right? We don't want people to stay here and relax. Um, and then I was thinking, okay, hold on a second, did that exist indoors? Actually, indoor furniture of my childhood wasn't that comfortable. Leather sofas, like like wood, there was lots of wood. There wasn't much material on furniture. So when you think about in the last sort of 30, 40 years, how armchairs have become really comfortable, like they're almost like a mini bed, all these cushions like slouch, become part of the armchair, become part of the sofa. And I realized, that's been one of the other big changes in furniture of the last few decades is let's make them so comfortable that you don't want to get out of them. Whereas in my childhood, furniture was like, okay, if I have to, right? I've had a hard day, okay. But it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. You're shuffling around, school chairs, for example. When I was at school, you wouldn't want to stay in those chairs for long. Now you've got ergonomic options, right? Let's make this as comfortable as possible. Put something under your bum to make it more comfortable, because be awful back then. So this discomfort that we avoid and this comfort that we want to embrace means that we have to seek very dangerous methods sometime to expose ourselves to discomfort, right? So now if I look on my social media feed and somebody goes, oh, you're all far too comfortable, it's like, what are you going to do about it? I know, I've got a great idea, Darryl. Let's fill your ice bath, your bath with ice cubes, right? Absolutely freezing cold water, and see how long you can survive in really cold temperatures, right? And if that's not good enough, find your local lake, right, especially in winter, and suffer, so we've almost gone, it's like, oh, we're far too comfortable, and let's suffer. And there are more pleasant ways, I suppose, of being uncomfortable, right? Going outside, spending time in nature, walking as one of your main forms of locomotion, right? Not easy. Taking the stairs rather than the lift. There are all these ways which don't mean you have to prove yourself on some reality show as to how tough you are, right? But just within your day, you can set yourself some challenges. You can set yourself some obstacles. Today is going to be a non-car to work day. I've got a bike. It's a commutable distance on a bike. I'm going to try and get a bike into work, right? I take a bus into work. You know what? I can walk a few stops before I get the bus because I want to have a bit more activity. When I get to work, I'm gonna spend less time in my chair. I'm gonna have standing meetings. I'm gonna walk every time I have a conversation. I'm gonna decide every time I go to the toilet, I'm gonna walk 2 or 3 flights of stairs to get there, right? There's all these little small changes we can make, which mean instead of us saying to ourselves at the end of the day, I went to work, I got up, I sat to eat. Fortunately, I can only stand in the shower. So I stood in the shower. Then I got out of the shower, sat down, ate, got into my car, sat, got to work. Oh, I had to walk to the lift or the elevator to get up to my floor. Oh, that was hard work. Got up the lift, got to my desk, and I sat there. And if I didn't have to go to the toilet, if I didn't have to go to the vending machine, if I didn't have to have lunch, I could have just been here all day. It's an inconvenience getting out of your chair. So anyway, pretty much the chair has become the focal point for many of our lives. And it makes us more depressed, more chronically stressed, less socially engaged, more dependent on technology, more physically inactive, more sedentary behavior. And there are all of these health consequences as a result. And if you don't stop me now, Casey, Randy, I'm just going to keep on talking. So as you can tell.
Well, no, I think we've led into the next. Is there a threshold? We talked briefly, or you talked briefly about the benefits of the exercise, and then we gave listeners some really great options just to add some more movement into their day. But is there a threshold of activity where you start seeing the results in the medical study or in the labs?
When I think about energy and vitality, I think about a kid. They have the energy to play, run around, climb things. That energy that feels like you just can't contain yourself. It's the stuff we've always wished they could just bottle up and sell to us, right? Well, this company's found a way to do just that. Amari's Happy Juice Pack. Mood, motivation, energy,
things our bodies can naturally produce when both our guts and our brains are happy and communicating. And we can actually improve that process of communication across the axis of the gut and the brain. This is cutting edge science. This is game changing information. This is where science meets soul. This is Amare, and we're helping people feel better naturally. Check out the links in the show notes for discounts and more information.
Yeah, so I mean, the results, it depends how sedentary you are. So if you are somebody who pretty much does nothing apart from sit all day, as soon as you do something, there are benefits. So like if you go from doing 0 to doing 5 minutes a day, there are benefits within that 5 minutes of physical activity, especially if it's quite intense physical activity. So one of the barriers is that we get concerned about, oh, whatever I do isn't going to be enough. But for pretty much nearly everyone, if you do more than you're doing now, and if you break up sedentary time, that's when you start, seeing the health benefits. I'll give you an example of this just to visualize this. There was a study done on pre-diabetic and diabetic individuals who work in an office environment, right? So very sedentary. And this study looked at 3 groups. So the first cohort went about their day as per usual, right? Went into work however they got into work, did all their movement, whatever they did as part of their day. That was the first group, i.e. no change. The second group went for a 30-minute to 60-minute walk after work, right? Brisk walk after work. And the third did 3 30-second sprints per day. So 1 in the morning, 1 after lunch, 1 after work, right? As fast as they could up the stairs. And what they looked at in this study were improvements in body composition, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugars, especially blood sugars, because they were dealing with diabetes or pre-diabetes. So they had a look at what happened to all of those 3 groups. So the first group, of course, nothing changed because they were doing exactly what they'd always done. The group who did the 30 minutes, 60 minutes of exercise, going for a walk, they saw benefits in many areas. However, the benefits in the group that did 30-second sprints, they did stair sprints. The individuals that did the stair sprints had the best outcome, improvements in health markers than any of the other 2 groups. So just a minute and a half a day, imagine, of maximal effort, that's the key, maximal effort, physical activity, garnered all of these health benefits. So I would say to anyone who's limited in terms of time is to increase the intensity in the time that you have when it comes to exercise. So somebody going for a leisurely stroll at lunchtime isn't going to be doing that much for their health or their fitness. But somebody who can spend 5 minutes away from their desk every hour and do something, do some star jumps, do some squats, do some push-ups, run up a few flights of stairs, something like that, there are going to be measurable differences in improvements in their health pretty much immediately. And even if we put to one side the physical benefits, there are improvements in mental health immediately. Just deciding, hey, you know what, I need a break from this mayhem. I'm just going to go for a walk, right? There's benefits immediately, right? There's improvements in focus and concentration when you get back. There's improvements in reducing this stress wall that occurs when you're like, I just can't deal with this, right? So just by taking a moment out from your hectic day, you're realizing some health benefits there from a mental health point of view, also a cognitive point of view as well. You're improving work performance, you're reducing the likelihood of work-related stress just by being more active throughout your day. In terms of quantifying it, the public health organizations around the world usually stipulate, if you want to see a measurable improvements in your health across the board, to aim for 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity physical activity. So moderate intensity is where it feels like you're doing around 5 to 6 out of 10 in terms of effort. So if you're walking, it would be a really fast walk, like a brisk, I'm in a rush type of walk, for example. So by doing that 150 minutes spread throughout the week, you're aiming for the minimum of what the recommendations are. The minimum actually goes from 150 to 300 minutes a week, right? And even at 300, people are like, how much? You know, I don't have the time. But again, if you increase the intensity, so if you go from moderate intensity to vigorous, you halve the time requirement. So 150 minutes comes down to 75, going from 6 out of 10 to maybe 8 out of 10 in terms of exertion. So it's harder work, but less time demand, but you still get the same level of health benefits. So yeah, so I would certainly say aim for in the first place, protocol, aim for the public health guidelines, because that's where there's a significant amount of research looking at comparing those who hit 150 minutes versus those who don't. And there's significant improvements for those who do, starting at a very physically inactive state and just start doing something. So everywhere along the kind of scale of doing nothing, doing a little bit, up to like doing a lot, there are health improvements all the way until there's kind of a law of diminishing returns, where it's like, okay, if you do 450, 500 minutes a week, you're not really going to improve your health if you do 600. Whereas if you go from 10 to 30, it's almost an exponential increase in improvements to your health. Wow. Right. And then as you go from 30 to, you know, to 150 to 300, it kind of starts to taper off. And that's only looking at, again, that's just looking at cardiorespiratory fitness, aerobic, but you need to do at least 2 days a week of strength training. That's also the baseline recommendation from public health organizations. So yeah, so that's what you want to aim for. and most studies looking at the impact of exercise on managing chronic lifestyle disease use that minimum 150 per week, 2 days of strength training as the baseline.
Gotcha. I think this is a great time now. We've set a solid foundation for listeners. Can we pivot into primal play method? I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so primal play method is, as I mentioned earlier, these 3 pillars of looking at the movements we designed, evolved, created to do. Our bodies are a wonderful piece of machinery that, of course, have a significant amount of flaws, especially as we age, right? But we have a significant amount of movement potential. So we're one of not many creatures who have the ability to adapt to our environment, to adapt our movement capability. So, for example, we can walk significant distances, we can run significant distances, we can sprint relatively quickly, we can lift and carry, we can jump, we can swim, we can pretty much move like the rest of the animal kingdom to varying degrees of success. But we can do all of those movement patterns. So we are movement generalists. Our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. They walked significant distances. They were predators, but they were also predated. We had to build shelters. We had to find and source food, and so we've got this capability that still exists within us even today in the 21st century, right? Our Stone Age selves reside within us. Our DNA, that DNA resides within us, but we have to do the work, right? So they had no choice. If they didn't work, they wouldn't eat. They'd freeze. You know, very low life expectancy, right? They had to work every single day. We have modern comforts, which mean we can live long lives based on improvements in, sanitation, nice, comfortable living, wonders of modern science and medicine. So we have our Stone Age bodies that require lots of lifestyle inputs, right? Good food, good nutrition, lots of movement to get the food, right? obeying the kind of laws of nature. You know, we should really sleep when the sun goes down, right? We shouldn't be awake at night. If we don't, we suffer the consequences. That happens no matter who you are. So there were these laws of nature that we should be following when it comes to movement. If we don't move, we start feeling pain, we increase the risk of depression. That happens because our bodies, we weren't meant to be sedentary. We were meant to be exploring, you know, looking out to the world rather than looking in. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to get outside and get some food. That's what you're going to do. You know, there's no choice in the matter. So that's the evolutionary piece, right? Evolutionary biology. The second is the exercise science. So the exercise science is how much, when, what type, what happens if you do that, what happens if you don't. So we know from the exercise science, there are all these wonderful benefits from movement. What happens if you do it? At what intensity? What happens if you don't, right? Then is the most beautiful part of the Primal Play method, which is the play psychology. So for myself, I hate exercise. I tried to love it. I realized many of the benefits of it, but even with that great experience, I was still like, oh, it's Monday again. Oh yeah, it's the start of my new program. And, you know, if I don't do it today, oh, that's fine. I can start again next week.
Yeah.
because Tuesday doesn't count. I can't do day one on Tuesday. I do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. That's it. Right. So the amount of Mondays that I missed because I was like, oh, I just don't feel up to it. I had all these benefits. I would tell people about the benefits, but I would still be like, do I really have to go to the gym? Oh, I can't find my trainers, can I? Oh, great. Yeah. Oh. Not a problem. You know, if I was going for a run, oh, there's a bit of rain outside. Oh, well, I can't run in the rain, can I? So for me, I just made so many excuses to exercise. But now I realize it wasn't because I was lazy. It wasn't because I didn't have the willpower. It's because humans were not, we weren't built for exercise. We weren't. We evolved to move, yes, but we didn't evolve to exercise. Exercise was designed to get athletes into a stadium, you know, with lions chasing them, pretty much, right? There were gladiators, there were Olympic athletes from classical ages. That's what exercise was for, to get those people in shape to do the sort of work that they did. Everyone else just had to work for a living, right? Farmers, pottery makers, whatever it was, right? They had to move as part of their work. These other people could exercise because they wanted to make themselves these incredible specimens of fitness. And so what's happened in 21st century is we go, oh, great, we have something called exercise, which is like a proxy. It's like a substitute. It's like a supplement. There we go. So exercise is like a supplement for the lack of physical activity that is part of our day-to-day lives. And as we know, with any kind of supplement, it isn't as good. It isn't as good really as the real thing, right? It isn't. It's close, but not quite. So why I add play psychology is because play enables us to step away from exercise and veer far more towards movement, because movement is really what our bodies needs. Our body needs movement because it enables us to work in lots of different intensities. It enables us to use our imagination and visualization. We're more likely to want to interact with our peers because playing games are far better with other people than by ourselves, right? There's this social dynamic that we engage when it comes to playful movement. There's all these feel-good hormones that are activated. So serotonin is activated, oxytocin, that interaction with others. We get natural dopamine hits, right? So endorphins, we get this natural endorphin high as soon as we immerse ourselves in play, not at the end like with exercise, right? The runner's highs are endorphins, right? You go for a run, 60 minutes later, you're like, yeah, I feel great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I was a kid, you know, if you think about a game you played as a kid, you felt great right away. That first 10 seconds in, you're like, oh my goodness, this is so much fun. You had the endorphin hit then. Imagine playing a game and somebody said, hey, I've got this amazing game. Oh, what is it? You feel really good after 2 or 3 hours of playing this game. Wow, sounds amazing. Like, no, as a kid, you'd be like, nah, no, 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 no. Let's find something else to play where we can get that joy and that hit now. And it doesn't mean the things we did as kids weren't challenging, right? You know, you might have to climb a tree and it might be a struggle and you might not be able to do it first time. You've got to keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. But it was immersive immediately. You were enjoying that, the fear of like your fear of heights. You were confronting it like, oh my gosh, can I do this in front of my peers? They're watching me. What if I don't succeed? Doesn't matter. I'm going to give it a go. Oh, my little brother's watching. You know, he thinks I'm a coward. No, I'm not. I'm going to keep going. You know, whatever it is you felt.
Mhm.
But all of those sensations make it very visceral. You know, and that's what play adds to movement. You know, it takes it away from the workout exercise mentality, which is, I would say, it's a poor substitute. It takes us far more towards movement, 3 dimensions, fast, slow, up, down, left, right, you know, rules that we make up, rules that we can change. You know, you exercise, you got to do it this way. There's only one way, the right way. You know what I mean? It's got
Mhm.
to look this way. You're playing a game of tag. Does anyone tell you when you played a game of tag or catch or it, whatever you called it in your part of the world, did everyone
Nope.
sit you down and go, hey, you know what? There's only one way to look when you're running, when you're playing tag. There's only one way to stand. Your posture's got to be right. You've got to look like this. You know, blah, 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 blah. Like, no. The only objective is don't get caught. And if you're chasing, make sure you catch someone.
Mhm.
Right? And whatever you need to do to make that happen, whatever body shape you need to be in to avoid being tagged, right? Anyway, so again, just me speaking about this,
Mhm.
it just brings my mind back to why I prefer to play out far more. And tag,
Yeah.
I have a game called Primal Play Tag. I played it on the stage in my TED talk. I have a version of tag called Primal Play Tag where you play like really close to each other, but you still have that feeling of playing tag as if you're a kid. But there were just so many benefits of playing games like tag, and climbing trees as an adult, and crawling on the ground like you're a bear. And again, for most people, like, what, you know, go get my hands dirty. I've got to,
Right.
you
Right.
know, there's so many reasons why I don't want to be doing this. But as soon as you do and you realize I don't really care what people think. I know this feels good. I hopefully can find people who want to do this with me.
Yeah. Mhm.
um, it's a wonderful place to be. So wherever anyone is on their journey, if you have a great workout program and you love to exercise, then great, you're okay, right? You probably will continue to do that and will never have any obstacles preventing you doing so. But if you've tried every New Year's resolution, gym membership, I'm signing up. Yeah, I'm signing up for all those classes. Yeah, I'm doing it. I've hired a personal trainer. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go, 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 go. 2 weeks later, where's the gym? You know what?
Mhm.
What gym? You know, I know I was there once. You know, like if that's you, then find an alternative which gives you joy, which makes your heart sing, which makes you think, rather than thinking, oh, I wonder if is the gym still open? Is it, you know, makes
Mhm.
you go, why isn't the gym open? You know, like,
Yeah.
why can't I do what I love to do right now? Why can't it be accessible to me right now? And again, play isn't dependent on the location. That's something which work is, you know, work, you've got to be in a certain place usually, right? To work out, you've got to be in a gym. If you're playing, your gym can be right here, wherever you are, because it's not really a gym, it's more of a playground.
Mhm.
And if you're a kid and you can't go outside, when I was a kid, right, my brother and I, if it was too cold or whatever to go outside, that usually wouldn't be an excuse. But if it really was, or if it was raining heavily, we'd be like, we're in our bedroom, we're going to play wrestling. I don't know how the furniture survived, but we would jump from the wardrobe down onto the bed like that would be our playground. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we would build forts and dens inside our bedroom, right? We'd crawl down the stairs with like, you know, like, anyway,
I
it's
love
like
it.
so incredible a feeling when you can pretty much initiate that playful spark anywhere, you know.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's taken a long time to get there. I had to go from this You know, I remember once being almost fired for laughing at work. You
Oh my
know,
Wow.
goodness.
my colleague and I were at the water cooler, you know, chatting about someone, having a laugh about someone, and you know, people complain, and we got called in to the boss's office, and you're thinking, well, what have I done? What possibly have I done today? I'm a star. You know, I'm doing
Mhm.
great here. Actually, Darryl, yeah, we've got a complaint. You were laughing at 10:18. You know, this morning we had complaints from such and such a desk that you were laughing. Like, what do you mean
Oh
laughing?
man.
Like laughing too loud? No, just laughing.
You can't do
This,
that. This is
yeah,
serious.
yeah, exactly. This is serious. We're here to make money, not to laugh. Go to a comedy show if you want to laugh. And I
Right.
remember thinking like, wow. But to be honest, I was like, yeah, you're right. I didn't question it. I was like, okay, I'm not going to go to work and laugh, you know. But I maintained that seriousness
Hmm.
even when I quit that environment, and I had to relearn.
Yeah. That's,
I was like,
thank
you
you
know
for
what? I need to
sharing.
almost go back to basics, you know? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah,
it's,
I had to go
I,
back to basics and do the hard play to get where I wanted to be.
oh, I love the journey, right? I think the journey that you described will resonate with a lot of our listeners. You know, we're set up to buy into a certain regime of exercise. And I'm not going to repeat everything, but I think you just
Yeah.
described it perfectly. I know we had a few more questions. Do you still have a few more minutes?
I'm good. I'll try and be brief and succinct
Okay, go ahead.
for the last few questions.
Something we came across on your website, we were really curious about, Darryl, is the pandiculation.
Mm.
Tell us what that's all about.
Yeah, pandiculation is the way that most mammals reset their nervous system, prepare themselves for movement. So babies in the womb do it. Many animals do it. And we as humans turn pandiculation into the art of stretching. So when we see a cat stretch, they're actually pandiculating. Something they do, full body movement. They kind of look like they're stretching. They're basically
Mhm.
extending their entire body. It usually lasts for about a second or so, and then they're primed to do stuff. That's what pandiculation is. The last time you would have seen somebody pandiculate would be a child yawning, right? So when a child yawns, and you probably just have to imagine, but if a child yawns, it's like arms and legs all over the place, you know, and they yawn, and then they're kind of like, okay, I'm awake now, you know, I'm ready to go. And that's the true purpose of pandiculation. It's kind of like, okay, I'm a bit tired, I need some oxygen, yawn, and then you're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm good to go. Whereas a workout requires, okay, let's do some stretching, let's do some warming up, let's get you ready. So it's the antithesis of pandiculation is kind of the antithesis of stretching.
Mhm.
Pandiculation is natural. Pandiculation is what we should be doing to prepare ourselves for movement. It's a full body movement. It's getting rid of releasing lots of tension in an instant. And it's priming your body for movement.
Wonderful.
That's
I love it.
really interesting too. We were reading about that, how stretching has not actually been proven to benefit you all that much. When you do
No.
before and after workout, it can actually lead to more injury.
Yep.
Definitely
Yep.
not stuff you read about very often.
No. It's become part of kind of exercise culture. It's just something that we
Right.
do. And if there is one benefit, is people do they feel good when they're stretching. You know,
Mhm.
maybe it's because they feel as if they're doing something useful. But in terms of what happens to us physically, those who are the most flexible, right? Because they've been trained to stretch, dancers, you know, martial artists, they are most likely to have dislocations. They're most likely to have injuries based on the activities they're doing because of this almost like false flexibility that they generate, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So animals tend to move in the range of motion that they have. That's what they tend to do because it helps them to stay safe and to stay strong and powerful. Humans go, it's not good enough for me to be, 120 degrees on my splits. I need 180. Do you know what I mean? I need to be more than 180. I need to be like 270 before it to look any good. So we train ourselves to push past what our joints are kind of safely saying, no, that's safe where you are there. That enables you to do exactly what your joint was designed to do. We go, nah, it's not good enough. You know what I mean? So that's why stretching can lead to issues with safe movement. Something like mobility is a far better way of maintaining natural flexibility, but you're also combining flexibility with strength. So yeah, so I could, again, something that I could talk about in lots of detail, but
Sure.
for sure, most people should question their stretching strategy. Do dynamic warm-ups instead. Explore pandiculation as a way of getting some of those benefits. The kind of mind body focus, I would say, is far better for most of us.
Wonderful. So next question, probably the last question here, is primal play for obstacle course racers or OCRs. How does that work? I noticed something on your website. You had a study or a case that where that really, this type of movement really supports obstacle course racers. And the reason why I'm asking is, not only do we have fun going out and doing Spartan races, but I know that a lot of our listeners do too.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, doing OCR races, your body has to move in lots of different ways. You're not just running in a straight line. You have to climb, you have to jump, you have to crawl, you have to get close to the ground. You have to be avoiding obstacles, climbing over obstacles. And so it's obviously much more physically demanding than just doing a standard endurance event, i.e. running for 10 miles, right? And so primal play is about expanding your movement repertoire, your movement diet. So I would say, as OCR expands on what somebody who would say normally do endurance events would do, it expands the type of movements you do. So just because you're a great runner doesn't mean you're going to be great at OCR, right? Because you need other skills and other abilities. So I would say all that primal play does is it makes your demands for OCR even broader. That's basically what it does. So I'm interested in primal play at everything the body should be capable of doing. Everything. So every different, not just one type of crawl, but several types of crawl, right? Not just being strong on four legs, on 4 limbs, sorry, but also how can you be strong on unipedal, just on one leg? How can you make sure you have really good, strong joint integrity? How can you make sure that you're balanced in terms of upper and lower body strength? So all of these will obviously transfer to somebody doing OCR, because they're going to be much more adept at being able to move in ways which make them more efficient doing OCR, which is going to be improving their, physical fitness, both cardio and strength. And that's why it feeds into people who do OCR races. And there's also, I suppose, a little element of like, it's a lot more fun, right? Than doing a standard race. So I would say primal play is almost like a superset of that, right? So primal play is meant to be unstructured. OCR still has a structure. This is the route. This is the equipment. You're going to be assessed that you're doing this correctly. You only can go one way. You can, what I mean? Whereas in primal play, I'd be like, I want to do that route backwards, sideways. I want to, I want to explore all the different ways of me traversing this obstacle. Whereas with an OCR race, you can't do that because there are strict guidelines and strict rules, and we're serious, and this is an event. So yeah, if I was doing a primal play, not that I've thought about doing one, but if I had a primal play obstacle course, it'd be very difficult to manage because people be starting wherever they wanted to, yeah.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Maybe something to think of. Yeah. Think of doing.
Oh, we're in.
Everyone's a winner.
I love it.
Well, Darryl, we are so grateful for you taking the time to speak with us and just bringing this fresh perspective, this fun view on health and fitness. And
thank you so much.
Real quick, where can listeners go to find out more about the Primal Play and what you do?
Yeah, the best place is my website, primalplay.com. There's lots of free resources, ebook downloads, videos, lots of blog posts with corresponding research. People who want to get deep dive down the rabbit hole of the research, that content is there. People just want to come and like, hey, show me some playful stuff that I can do. That's also there as well. And all of my kind of services and products are mentioned on the website. I do have some physical products to help people become more playful as well, in terms of active play. And also I have probably my TED talk is a great way, called Why Working Out Isn't Working Out. It kind of really sums up a lot of what we've discussed on this podcast, the challenges of the 21st century for us as humans, and how we can harness our inner child and become more playful.
Oh, love it.
I love it. So I encourage everybody to go to his website. Definitely watch the TED Talk. It was just fun to watch it. And it got me really excited about getting out and doing some just play, right? It was energizing. So thank you, Darryl. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome, Andy. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time today. And yeah, I'm excited as well. I'm like, I need to go and find something playful to do this evening now. So thank you for getting me talking. And now I can get doing. All right.